So I listened to the Gretzky interview.
Yeah.
That you mentioned last week.
So good.
By the way,
Yeah.
I'm going to start. So I have the podcast episodes up on the website now. They're all listed up there. So what I'm going to start doing is when we mention things, I'm going to link to it on the website page now. So it won't be in the YouTube thing or whatever. You have to go to the actual website. I'll put the links to stuff and books and whatever we mention that's worth looking into. I'll put it all there. So
okay.
Reason I'm saying that, the Gretzky interview, I do have it there. So the link to the interview for anyone that's interested in it is there. So
great interview.
Oh my God, it was exactly as you described it, because even though you told me that it was going to be good, I was still like, yeah, like it's going to be good.
Well, I was hoping I didn't just get caught in the moment either.
That's right. So I watched it after I watched Charlie's game actually the other day, and holy cow, man, freaking awesome interview. Because like you mentioned, it was a couple layers deeper than tell me what you ate before your game questions, you know?
Yeah.
So I want you to say again just what you remember of it, a couple of your highlights from it, because I want to bring up my highlight of it, what I thought.
Yeah, so with Gretzky's podcast, I mean, if I can remember it, I was just so impressed. I always thought that he was always saying these things just to try to sound humble because he was so great. But when I saw this interview, it was in a different setting, and they were asking him a question, and he just has the mindset of a winner, period. Mm-hmm. But the beautiful thing is, like, he is actually so humble, and I love his mind. Like how he thinks, and he's so unselfish and all about team. He deflects a lot of stuff because he truly believes that it takes it wasn't just him. So the ego is small. He's very humble. His mindset is incredible. Like, he's just got the winning mindset. And I forget some of the stuff that I maybe wrote down or talked about last week.
Yeah.
I'm thinking too much about it right now.
Yeah, no, that's right.
And it's out of my mind, but I love the interview.
So from the points that you made last week, I had a couple different, 2 points that I pulled out that I really liked. They were different than yours, but the first one is the easy one. So at the very end, he was asked, what advice would you give to the average Joe person that's trying to do something special? Yeah. What would you say to them? And he gave a good answer, but it was expected. Just, you got to check your ego at the door answer, right? There's no place for ego. Mm-hmm. You were talking about his answer when he said that, jealousy is a cancer. Yeah. And that was one of yours. And the other one, he was talking about the best athlete ever, and he mentioned the horse, the Secretariat.
Yeah.
So the 2 that I pulled out was the ego one.
And he's such a sports geek. He pulled from all kinds of things. And that was the other thing, is that I hope people get out of that, if they do listen to it, is that it's a mindset. He would watch a tennis match and pull shit out from there of a winning attitude or the competitive attitude or whatever. And he respected those people so much. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that comes back to the resources thing, right? Yeah. He's being resourceful, learning what he can from where he can. But so he mentioned the ego thing at the end, which is an obvious one. Like, there's no place for ego when you're trying to become good at something, because you need to learn from everyone, and there's people that are way ahead of you no matter what you're doing in whatever area you're doing it. Yeah. So that was the one. But the more interesting one, and this was the one that I wanted to talk about for today, is the question that Patrick Bet David is his name now. I remember. Yeah. He asked him, when you see a young player, can you tell that they're going to be a hockey player or not? So something along those lines. Yeah. And he said, I can tell in 3 seconds. Yeah. And the guy was kind of surprised. He was saying, like, what do you mean you can tell in 3 seconds? Well, it's like kids have a look. Like, they carry themselves. They play a certain way. They have a certain presence on the ice. We like to use that word, presence on the ice. And you can tell, like, this kid's got a legit shot at being a player. But he was kind of talking about more the physical side of it when he just watches them play. Yeah. So the follow-up question was, are there certain red flags or attributes that you can see, whether it's an attitude or whatever, away from the rink, where you can say, this kid's not gonna
never make it.
Yeah. And he had an interesting answer, because my initial impression of that question is just like, well, if the kid's got a shit attitude, then there's no chance. Yeah. But Gretzky's answer was, I never hold attitudes or behaviors to kids. I never think that they are stuck with that, because kids can change so much. Yeah. And your attitude can change and your behavior can change. Yeah. And that was a good answer, because that is right. And I didn't think of it in those terms. I kind of would be like, this kid's got an attitude problem, he's a write-off kind of thing. Like, that kid's going to be, a cancer in their dressing room, shit guy, selfish, whatever the word is. But kids can change, man.
Yeah.
And people can change.
Yeah.
It's not just kids. It's everyone
Yeah.
can change. And so that was probably my favorite part of the podcast when he was talking about that, because a lot of kids I think can relate to that, or just people that are trying to change behaviors. It doesn't even have to be a hockey thing, but
Yeah.
I had a nice message from a kid the other day. He was talking about, I forget which podcast it was. It was a few back. We were talking about body language and how body language is such a bad, if you have bad body language, it can be such a negative. And I had a kid message me and he was saying, "Oh man, that podcast was really helpful because I know I struggle with body language and I'm trying my best to change it."
Yeah.
And that's what the beautiful thing is you can change it.
Well, and like you said earlier, he recognizes that he needs to change it.
Yeah.
And that's the number one thing, right? Alcoholics, the biggest change to addictions and stuff like that, not that I know. I'm just saying this is from what I've read and stuff like that, is understanding that you have a problem. Once you have a problem, if you're willing to address and work through it, then that's where your biggest changes are made. And you take an alcoholic or something like that, when they make that change, they recognize it, do the work to get out of it, their life is a whole different lifestyle.
Yep.
And they're better for it.
Yeah, that's it.
And yeah, you look at an attitude like, and I think that's a very true statement. That's what I liked about listening to Gretzky too, is it's a different perspective. And of course, if a question was asked him in a different way, maybe he wouldn't have answered it that way. But I really do like that because, you know, someone could rub you the wrong way and it's just, they rub you the wrong way. But yeah, but who are they hanging out with? What's the environment? What's it like at home? You know, someone changes their diaper every day and tell them how great they are and they come across that way, or is it really rough at home and they come across very abrasive or whatever? But when you're around leaders, and this is why leadership is very important, when you're around good people, and that's what I said, books are my best friends because they're the ones that teach me a lot of life, right? And who I hang out with, you know, if I hang out with 5 idiots, I'll be one.
Yep.
So and when people recognize that, that's where the biggest changes come. And recognize it, and they want to be different, and then of course, if you want to be a hockey player, you know that attitude has to change, and that's part of it. It's a motivating factor, right?
Yeah. Well,
and some people never do change.
That's right.
Obviously.
But having said that, if you're a kid that you identify the problem, you need to know that you can change. It will take work and it will take time, but you're not stuck. And I've mentioned this, I used this example about myself before. So when I was in high school and coming out of high school, I was known for being a bit of a hothead. So I had like some snap to me where I would just like unreasonably angry about stupid things that don't matter. Yeah. And my family still kind of holds me to that because they remember that about me. Yeah. And I haven't had a.
You're not that guy at all.
Like since before I was 20 years old. Like that was the last time I had any of those kind of episodes where I would like freak out about nothing. And now people that meet me now don't even know that about me. Yeah. And they would say, so my Christine, for example, she doesn't know that about me. Like, so sometimes
I've never seen it.
If we're talking about, you know, old stories about where I did something stupid or whatever, like she'll sit there and listen and like laugh. Like I can't she can kind of see that I would have that in me to be able to do that, but that's not part of my personality now. And so that's just an example of like, you can change. And I was an adult. As an adult, I did that. Yeah. And as a kid, it's even easier to change. So if you have a bad habit, or you're not great at skating or shooting or whatever the skill is, or it's an attitude problem where you need to have, you freak out about nothing, you have bad body language, you're smacking your stick, you're selfish, you're always worried about your own success over, the success of everybody together or whatever it is. Those things, you can actually change those things. And that's why I really liked that answer when he was asked the question, because that'll give kids, especially, it can give you some hope where you don't need to compare yourself to whoever is around you right now. It's just know that you can take steps to change, and people will recognize that. The adults that are watching you will recognize that. The scouts will recognize that. They'll see that you're not a hopeless case or whatever. Yeah. If you're good enough, like, you can change. And that's why you see guys
or someone steps in your life, like let's say a scout watches you for the first time. He doesn't have the memory of what it was before if you've made a change already.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? They don't say, well, I don't see that.
Well, and that's why you see guys that have terrible attitudes. They'll get chance after chance after chance if they're good enough. Like Evander Kane is my favorite example. And he's just starting to run out of rope now. Yeah. Maybe. And he still might get another. He still might sign, right?
Still might make another million.
Exactly. So it's like, it's you can see that people are willing to give you chances. People are willing to hope and to help you try to change if you decide that you want to change, and you can do that if you want to. That's why I really like that. Again, I recommend.
For me, the best example I've ever seen is myself. Yeah. We talked just the other day about some of my youth and where I've come from. And I said this, I think, on a podcast before, that one of my best friends, we saw each other 5 years ago for the first time in 20 years. We're best friends. Played. He lives in Colorado now, and we played hockey together, and he played pro, and great guy. He hasn't changed. And when he was doing some following of my stuff, and like the common friend that we have here is very successful in hockey, and we met, and he looked at me and goes, you're successful now. And I go, I don't know, like, I'm doing good. Yeah. Like that's how I said, yeah, I'm having fun, man. Like, but things are good. He goes, yeah, but you got this, you got this, you got this. I go, yeah, I love it. Like, it's great. Yeah. I wasn't thinking much of it. And he goes, but Andy, I didn't want to say the word,
yeah.
I said, yeah, but is that what we're going to hold ourselves to? I said, thank God that I didn't get stuck with that label the rest of my life and continue on.
That's right.
I recognized that I needed help. Not, guys, there's nothing bad here.
Yeah.
But I needed help just to be a functioning human.
Yeah.
To be able to talk to people. I was insecure. I came from like a different world.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a lot of confidence in all these different things. I was always a nice person and stuff, but it was disguised. Like I was going through life as a fake, if I can say it that way.
Yeah.
Like trying to be something that I wanted to be, but I didn't know how to do it. I immersed myself in books and reading and a hardcore fix myself program for years.
Yeah.
And then when people look at when an old friend says, wow, you're pretty sharp now. Like, you got a lot of shit going on. It's like, yeah, because I made a change.
Yep. Yeah, and and man, knowing and people that have no idea, like the background that we're talking about with you, and it's like, that's why I have so much respect for you. Mm-hmm. It's not just your professional career. Yeah. It's just like being able to dig yourself out of the hole. Yeah. Because you were resourceful with what you had. Yeah. Like, you were dealt a shit hand, man. Like,
in some ways.
In some ways. Right? And much worse than most people. And you could whatever.
Yep.
But you found a way to dig out of the hole 100%. Because this whole theme of what we're talking about today, you had a brain to try to dig yourself out of the hole. Yeah. And that's what I want to come back to with all of these topics, whether it's the Gretzky point I just made, the social media stuff, whatever. Is like, you need to have a brain. You need to be resourceful. You need to evaluate resources. Yeah. And you need to have that capability, or you're going to get in a hole and you're going to be stuck in the hole, and you're not going to know how to solve a problem to get out. Yeah. So it's really important. So again, just if I have that interview with Gretzky linked on the website. If you're interested in that, you should watch it. It's pretty good. It's only it's not even an hour, I don't think.
No, I think it's 40 minutes.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Excellent.